Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode, I'm joined by co-host Phil Lindsey. There's something to be said for the standalone film. And we've talked about standalone films here on the 6M before. Most notably, we've covered Elf, we've covered Trading Places, we've covered other projects, other films, other movies that I'm drawing a blank on right now, quite frankly, that are just standalone films. They never had a sequel for whatever reason. They didn't have it. There wasn't a trilogy or 4 movies or prequels or another set of movies or another set of sequels, whatever. And we cover all those too here on the show as well, kids, as you know. But there's something to be said for the standalone film. And speaking of Face Off, there is supposedly a sequel coming, so I shouldn't say anything too soon. Hoy vey. Yeah, we'll see when that happens. I think there's something to be said for this, that you can just make this movie, get in, get out, tell a really good story, entertain a whole bunch of people, and just split. You know, it's like you're ending with a 3-point shot in Utah. You know what I mean? Like that you're done. You're done. You went out on a high note. Don't come back and play for the Wizards. That's going into another story, another realm. So I'll stay away from it. The movie we're talking about here today, kids, is True Lies. And True Lies, directed by the great James Cameron. I'll say great loosely, and I'll tell you why shortly. True Lies, directed by James Cameron. I can't help myself. Screenplay, of course, also by James Cameron. It's based on La Totale, which is a French comedy film. We'll get into that here shortly as well. It is produced by James Cameron and Stephanie Austin. And it stars, of course, a stellar cast of characters, some big-time names here in this film that we'll get to. The budget for this movie was 100 to 120 million. It made a little bit of change, kids. It made almost $379 million at the box office. Distributed by 20th Century Fox, yes, sir. And released on July 12th, 1994. At the Regency Village Theater, and in the United States, July 15th, 1994. 141 minutes is the runtime. And that, my friends, is your lowdown for True Lies. So, Phil, let's get into this. I'll go first because I'll be honest with you. I love this movie, but I haven't seen it in a very long time, though I've seen it 300 times, and I'm not even making that up. When's the last time you've seen True Lies, and does it hold up for you today?
Man, I can't think of the last time I've seen it. Has been years ago. But it's one of those movies that's always on cable in some ways, like on FX or some just random channel. So I feel like I always see parts of it when I'm flipping channels sometimes, and I always will sit and watch something like the bridge scene or something, just because I just get caught in a moment, and then I'll keep turning. Um, Yeah, and I think it's aged really well. I think the humor in it can be hokey at times, but I think it's aged pretty well. There's some cheesy things about it, um, but it's definitely a remnant of that time period. They don't really make action movies like this anymore. Like the day of the Schwarzenegger popcorn action movie is kind of over.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and we've covered them here. We've done Face Off. We've done Con Air. We've done those films that, like you said, they're popcorn films. They're not meant to be taken seriously. They're not meant to make any bold statement about the country or about us or about society. They're just, shoot them up, blow them up kind of fun movie. And that's what this is. So yeah, I feel that. Does it hold up for you? All right, let me rephrase this. Cause you mentioned sort of the time frame that it comes from. Is it dated? Does it feel too much in the vein of a 90s action film?
Uh, I think bits and pieces of it feel a little dated, but I think on the whole, I think it's still an enjoyable movie, and that could be nostalgia from my point. I don't know, just because I would be curious to see how a new viewer would view it that has never seen it before?
Ooh, good point. Yeah, yeah. Sometimes it makes you wonder. Um, I guess I go back to when I was in my 20s. If I saw a film older than I was, how did I view that film? That's a good question. Good question. Um, we talked about this movie not having a sequel. We hadn't even jumped into the cast or anything yet here. Are you surprised that this never got a sequel, or is this one of those Arnold films that just didn't need one? Did they tell all the story they needed to? Was there anything left at the end that maybe they could have continued with, maybe, or do you think it's fine the way it is?
Um, I think it's fine the way it is. Um, I think it would have been interesting to do like this. You know, what Mr. and Mrs. Smith was for Brad and Angelina with Arnold and Jamie Lee Curtis, but
Mm.
um, I feel like for the premise of this movie, it was fine as a standalone.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. What's the movie? Payback with Mel Gibson. I've been wanting to do Payback on the 6M forever because I effing love that film. I don't much love him, but I effing love that movie. And like they just let that movie sit there and it never got a sequel, which I'm really, really happy about because it did need one. Um, Sometimes you just tell your story, you get in and get out, you're done, which I think is really cool. So Arnold's the man here, kids, as we all know. If you didn't know that, what's wrong with you? Arnold's the man. Phil, where do you rank this? First of all, are you an Arnold guy? Do you like his films? I mean, was it because you were a kid that you got into him, or do you like him, or what's your take on Mr. Schwarzenegger?
Um, I think he can be very hit or miss. I think there are classic Schwarzenegger movies where he's subdued and he's great. And there are other movies where he's hamming it up and it's a little bit too much. But I feel like True Lies is one of those movies where he strikes the right balance.
Mhm. I agree, dude. There's moments of this film where I'm like, this is gonna sound funny for me to say it this way. There's moments of this film where he just feels like a real actor. It, do you know what I
I mean, no,
mean?
I get what you mean. Like some of the scenes where he's undercover, in particular, I think he does really well. Um, you can buy him as like this average guy, that is going and being like this calm and collected spy. He never feels over the top in any of those scenes. The only thing that doesn't feel believable about him being a spy is that he's this massive man. Like he's like, it's like there, there's nothing about his appearance that is like covert. Like you could pick him out of a room right away because he's tall, he's super muscular. Like even in suits, he just looks he looks like this gigantic man. So it's like, who is this guy? Like the second he walks in the room, I feel like most people would turn around like, who is this guy?
You know what? I was just in my head mulling that over. The idea of almost every movie that he did in the 80s and 90s, I would say to a certain extent, his shirt's off. And it's, he's showing off the delts and the traps and the biceps. And why not, kids, right? But like um I think honestly I'll say this for them. It does feel as though they went to great lengths to not accentuate his size. Like it feels
Yeah,
like you know what I mean? Like his suits were not loose, but it didn't feel like they were sucked to him. Like it felt like they were really trying to put over this is just a normal guy. Like we all know it's not, right? But like I get what you're saying. We all know who's under that suit, but like it really felt at times it was like for me anyway, he kind of did just blend in. But by the end of the film, he's getting his clothes torn to pieces. You can see the big tough Arnold dude from that we've known and loved from other films. But yeah. Um
yeah, yeah. I every time I see the movie, I laugh at the third act of the movie where he still has like the button up shirt that he was wearing earlier in the movie, but now it's like tattered and his muscles are showing. It's
of
it's
course.
such it's such a action movie trope.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's Bruce Willis with the tank top on. It's, the thing
Yeah.
started off
I,
pretty white and it's not white anymore by the end of the film.
Yeah, you've got Jamie Lee Curtis running around with like the smallest dress. It just yeah.
Of course. Oh, we're going to get into that. I can't wait to talk about that. We did Trading Places, you and I, so we've already discussed Miss Curtis's um, certain attributes of her physical shape. So yeah, and I'll say that with all due respect, kids. But let's talk about the cast. We're already talking about it. We've already talked quite a bit here about Arnold so far. Where do you think this film ranks for Arnold's resume? Do you think it's up there? Because for me, it kind of feels like one that we don't talk about a whole lot anymore, which is kind of sad. What do you think?
I mean, I think it ranks pretty high because I think that this is one of his best movies in terms of just showcasing his acting ability and also being able to showcase his comedic side in a way that's just not over the top. He does give like some of the action movie lines, but it's not as bad as some of the other movies we've seen him in. I mean, he does do the "You're fired" line, which
It's
is so
perfect.
it's just such a action movie one liner. But it's not nearly as bad as some stuff that we've seen him do earlier or later in his career.
Yeah. I actually pop off that line when I heard it again today for the first time in years. It's a really good line, actually. I really kind of in love with it. I kind of really love it. So, um, I don't think we should sleep on this film, kids, especially not with Arnold's discography, his filmography, I should say. Arnold portrays Harry Tasker. He's the main character, supposedly in computer sales. But he's boring. He's mundane, even though he's got an accent, dashing good looks, perfect hair, nice suits, but he's normal and he's boring. And he's married to Helen, portrayed by Jamie Lee Curtis, who is boring and mundane, and is pretty drab, wears a lot of brown, doesn't think too highly of herself anymore. Probably they're married with a kid. It's a teenager, and it is what it is. And then we get to see them both half naked in the third act, as Phil said. Um, Jamie Lee Curtis, Phil, I submit, is one of the best actresses. Honestly, I mean, I don't know if I'll say of all time, but she's very, very good. Like everything that she's done, in my opinion, has just been top notch. And she just got this no BS meter, this sensibility about her that just feels like I'm not going to take any crap from anybody. I'm independent and I'm not going to put up with any nonsense. So even though we see her half naked, it never, in my opinion, to me anyway, it never feels like, oh God, here we are again taking advantage of an actress. It to me, it never felt that way. She just feels like, well, this is Jamie Lee Curtis. This is not today's current sex pot in Hollywood. This is Jamie Lee Curtis. It's her call what she's going to do, and we know her pedigree, we know her background, what she's been in before. What do you think about Jamie Lee Curtis in this role as Arnold's wife?
I think she's great. I think that she is three-dimensional in this movie. I mean, I
Mm.
think when she needs to be funny, she's very funny. When she needs to be confident and sassy and all the other things that we love about this character, I think she does really well in those scenes. And I think when she needs to be like subdued and believable as like this, uh, what is she? A s- she's an administrative assistant at like a law firm, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, when she has to be this unassuming, kind of wallflower at an office, like that's believable as well. I think she's great. Of course, like all of the notable scenes that we know her from this scene also are great. Um, Depending on where you discovered them, if you're like most people my age and you discovered them when you weren't supposed to be watching things like this, it was definitely an awakening moment for you. Like, yeah, I think I like women.
You're like, wait, wait. Oh yeah, no, I do. Yeah, sure do. Yeah, that's good stuff. And you know what? We're very uptight in this country, folks. In case you didn't know, about sex, and we won't make the show about that, but without being crude and without going to the gutter with how we describe these scenes with Jamie Lee Curtis, she's insanely freaking gorgeous. She's got a perfect body, and I'm not going to apologize for any of that. I'm just stating a fact, and if people can take it however they want to take it, um, but she looks great, and I don't know. Looking at it through today's lenses, would you do this, dude? Phil, they're still doing things in movies like we want to think of ourselves as so sensible, but dude, you watch shows on these streaming services, man. They're much more raunchier than what we got with the little striptease dance that she does in this film. There's can't even hold a candle to it. So like, I don't know. I just think we get all bent out of shape over the weirdest things sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's definitely eye candy in movies still. I don't think that that's a thing that stopped in that day and age.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I don't really bump against anything that they did with Jamie Lee Curtis, but then again, I suppose that I'm not the kind of person that would have had a problem with it at the time that I saw it. So I don't know. I suppose if a woman gave her thoughts on it, I of course would be open to listening to what is her criticism of it.
That's
Um,
fair. Yeah.
but I don't know. This of
Yeah.
course is us two straight men sitting on a podcast talking about what may or may not be the plight of women in Hollywood. So I don't think that we of course are always going to be right or have the best perspective on it.
Are you kidding? That makes us experts. What are you kidding me? We've got this figured out. We don't need dames. Just think of it, dude. There was a day and age in this country when we called women dames and like
James
dames,
skirts.
skirts. Listen here, sweetheart. Imagine walking around calling a woman sweetheart that you'd never met before, brother. You're gonna get punched in the face. I'm telling you. Like, and you
Yeah.
should.
Yeah, you definitely should.
I'm saying. Yeah, she's great in this. And do you buy her and Arnold as a couple? Does it feel real to you?
I do buy them as a couple later on because we see their chemistry together. Once it gets past the I guess kidnapping part.
Hmm.
Um but there just as I'm older I kind of bump into, all right, well, you were married to this guy for 17 years. Well, or however long they've been married. And he said that he was a spy for 17 years. That's what it was. That's why I'm getting 17. You were married to this guy for this long amount of time. You have a teenage daughter, so you've definitely been married over 10 years. You thought this guy was just this computer salesman, and this guy is like ripped. This guy is like huge, man. What do you think he's doing with all this time away? That's just doing like computer salesman. You think he's just hitting the gym to lift those boxes, to put them in storage? Like what? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Like, and when does he works all the time? When does he have time to even go to the gym, by the way? We never talk about that enough, Phil, in these films. How these muscle bound action dudes, we never see them lifting weights in any of the films they're in, which is peculiar to me. So I don't know, but it's a fair question. I mean, they have a kid, so they've had relations, right? She's seen him with with his clothes off. We assume these are all valid questions. We have no
Yeah.
answers.
Um. Yeah. It's funny, man, because I think if you think about the premise of him being a spy and his wife not long knowing for that long, you kind of come up with some questions like, well, wait a minute, like, but I don't think this is that kind of movie. I think you're just supposed to enjoy it for what it is.
Right. Sure. Of course. As every Arnold film is supposed to be. Don't think too much into it. Don't need to. So yeah, so Jamie Lee Curtis, and I'm with you what you said. I do feel like that they feel more like a couple towards the end of the film, but I think she's great. And let's be fair, kids, when you put Arnold in a film with really good actors, it's going to elevate his performance. And Phil, there's something else that maybe we don't talk about really at all with this guy. It kind of does feel like when you put him in a film with really good actors, he does tend to step his game up. Am I just imagining that? Do you get that sense as well?
Uh, yeah, I can see that. I mean, we can't all account for Batman and Robin. How there were several good
Oof.
actors and actresses in that, and it did not elevate any of them.
Well, Schumacher happened. That's all I can tell you. My God. Once you put nipples on the bat suit, all bets are off. There's one line I remember from that film, and it's Arnold's. The name is Freeze. Remember it well, for it spells the chilling sound of your doom. I hate
Yeah.
that. God, it's such a bad film.
You remember other great lines like "What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age,"
I do now, thanks.
or him
Oh.
just walking in the room, "Freeze."
Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad. Oh my Lord God. I can't stand it. Let's move on from that before I end up having to take something for a migraine. Um, Tom Arnold, and I think this is what got us talking about doing this episode. Is we talked about Tom Arnold in another podcast episode. Can't remember what it was now. Tom Arnold as Albert Gibson. And since we don't curse on this show too awful much, I'll replace the word. But I got one liner for you, Phil, as when it comes to Tom Arnold is what kind of a sick witch takes the ice cube trays out of the freezer? Dude, the way he delivers that line, it's like he stops talking to focus on Arnold. And it says, what kind, like he's all upset. It is absolutely perfect. And come to find out, that's linked in something because Tom Arnold's divorce from Roseanne Barr at the time of this film being made, supposedly she took the ice cube trays out of the freezer. So he's telling the story to James Cameron on the set, and he repeats the line. And Cameron's like, "Oh, dude, we've got to put that in the film."
Oh
So it
my
gets put
god,
in the film.
that's really funny.
It's awesome.
Yeah, he has several moments in this movie where he is just insanely funny. He's so good in this movie. Um, when when Harry walks out of the office after he overhears the phone call, and he's like, "Yeah, she's having an affair," and he sits there for a brief second. He was like, "Welcome to the club, man."
Yeah. But you know what? We talk about Arnold having moments. He also has moments. Like when he throws him up against the car and he gets quiet for a second, he goes, "What'd you think was going to happen, Harry? You're never home." And I'm like, wow, this guy might have a little something. Just the way he delivered the line made you feel like he was more than just a comedian, right? Uh, to me, by far, this is the best thing he's ever done. I don't think I can't say that I've went and made it a mission to watch everything Tom Arnold's ever done, but I've never seen anything else with him in it that I would even hold to this film. I mean, he was
No,
surprisingly good in this.
no, and I think outside of just him being the comedic sidekick, I think his timing is very good in some of the serious moments. Um, just like when Harry pulls the car over, when he realizes he took the page out of the out of the recording, and he's just like, "Give me the page," and he smashes that window, and he stares off into the distance, and he's like, "Okay."
Yeah. Yeah. Hands it to me. It's like, seek help, Harry. That's all he says. Oh, it's good stuff. Something else about Arnold that we'll throw in here. He didn't expect to get the role. He honestly just went so he could meet Jim Cameron. That's the only reason he went. He did some scenes with Arnold on a read through. Cameron immediately said these guys have chemistry together. Um, and then Arnold supposedly jokingly said, or excuse me, let's see. Tom supposedly jokingly said about Arnold, he's not that big. I think I can take him, which highly amused Cameron and sealed the deal. So apparently he just showed up to be showing up, didn't take it very seriously, was just himself. And lo and behold, he got the film, which kind of makes sense for someone that's not a natural actor. I mean, don't be something you're not. Just show up and here's what I am. And if that's not good enough, I'll be on my way. It kind of makes sense now that he got the role.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Um I can see them thinking like, yeah, this guy just works. This guy's just naturally funny. Um because a lot of moments in the movie where he is funny, it doesn't feel that contrived. Some of it does, I think now after watching it so many times, it does feel a little tacked on, but that's just because 'cause I've seen this movie over and over and over again. Um, but I do think that for the most part, he comes off very naturally funny.
He does. And something else that goes along with this, which is surprisingly interesting. 20th Century Fox did not want Tom Arnold because of the stuff with Roseanne Barr, and James Cameron threatened to take the film elsewhere if they didn't let him be in in the movie.
Wow.
Yeah, and the studio said, "All right, fine, keep the guy." And so apparently no one told Tom this. So when he found out later, he was extremely grateful to James Cameron. Been friends ever since, and is friends of Arnold ever since as well. So nice little stories. I like when we review things that have nice little stories as opposed to backbiting and betrayal and bloodlust, like pro wrestling. So
Yeah. It's a nice little moment of loyalty that, created a real friendship.
absolutely. Yeah. Makes you sick, doesn't it? Uh, I'm all for it. Art Malik as Salim Abu Aziz. Yes, kids, it's the 90s. It's an action film. They've all got to be Middle Eastern, those bad guys. And look, it's still being done now. I don't know if we need to dive into a commentary on this, but we know how Hollywood is, Phil. Whoever the guys are at the moment are probably going to be the bad guys in the films as well, or what we consider to be bad guys, or I don't know how else to phrase that. Um, did a fantastic job in this. If his job is to be um, despicable and you don't really know what his motives are, except that he's just supposed to blow stuff up and he just wants to kill everybody. He doesn't care if he dies himself. The guy does a bang up job. You do generally not want to see this guy win. You can tell he's a really bad dude. Um, and he has moments of being funny in this film too, which I didn't see coming. But he's not an over the top bombastic villain. But when the guy's filming him and he's giving this great speech about what he's going to do, and the battery runs out, and he's like all upset, and then they call his name, he's like, "What?" And he just screams really loud, dude. That cracked me up. Um, any commentary on this thing that we do with, you know, we got to make all the terrorists Middle Eastern. They got to look a certain way. I mean, what's your
Yeah.
take on that? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, it's very like it's very stereotypical terrorist stuff from that time period. That is the face of fear for a lot of people. So,
Mm.
for the demographic that this movie is geared to, those are the people that are like, yeah, America, yeah, showing it to those guys. Um, I get it. It's goofy American fantasy fulfillment.
Mm.
Um, would it be nice if brown people and people from that side of the world weren't always used as the butt of the joke or uh the villain in these kind of things? Yeah, but I mean, I do think we get the character that works with Tom and Arnold at the agency, which he just so happens to be of Arab descent as well, so that he could perfectly fit in and go undercover later in the movie. What a coincidence!
We got a guy on the inside. He kept saying that as if we didn't know who it was going to be.
It's so great the first time I saw it, and it's like, oh, of course it's him. um, but yeah, his character, the other guy. Why can't I think of the guy's name that works with them? What's his name?
Oh, the character?
Yeah,
The character is Facile?
Fasil. That's it. That's it.
Facile. Yeah.
So, like even Fasil, having his action moment, where he takes the gun out of the camera and he shoots the three guys, and he's like, "Whoa."
That was good.
Yeah, it's great. I think I think that is a nice addition to this movie, of having an unassuming person of Arab descent along with the villain as well, to kind of give you a guy on our side to root for,
Mm.
and not make it seem like, ah, we're just making all people that look like this into the bad guy.
And since we're speaking about him anyway, you're talking about the actor Grant Heslov. who actually has a pretty substantial career. And he is known for producing and writing collaborations with George Clooney, among others, which have earned him 4 Oscar nominations.
Wow,
Yeah, he
didn't know
received
that.
the Academy Award for Best Picture in 2013 because of a co-producer credit on Argo. He's been in True Lies, Black Sheep, Enemy of the State, Scorpion King, and man, his filmography is big. Like he started in '85. His most recent project is 2022. So
Wow.
yeah, he's been around. Good
Yeah,
for
so
him.
I think he was a good addition to this movie. Yeah, every time I think about him now, other than of course his big action scene is of course him doing the tango with Tom in the
Yeah.
scene to make fun of Harry.
Oh, the tango. Let's talk about the tango before we finish the cast with Helen and Harry. The stunts weren't a problem for Mr. Schwarzenegger in this movie, kids. His biggest challenge was the tango. He took dancing lessons to realistically perform the dance. He rehearsed the scene for about 6 months as he wanted to make sure he was as good at the tango as Al Pacino was in Scent of a Woman. Mission accomplished. He does this thing so flawlessly. You could argue it's robotic, I guess, but the tango kind of is that anyway. I mean, dude, he was fantastic. He was fantastic with doing that dance, man. Let's be honest.
Um, can't say that I am shocked that Arnold Schwarzenegger would be a little bit stiff and not a great dancer. Um, uh, it always makes me think like when we find out stuff like these action stars have to go through like this training to do the dance stuff. It always makes me think of Michael Jordan at the end of the Jam video, and he's trying to do the spins and stuff with Michael Jackson,
Oh,
and
it's
he looks so
terrible.
bad. It's so funny every time I see it. He looks terrible. It's like, yeah, I can't imagine what the tango lessons look like. If somebody was in there with a camera, I'm sure Arnold did not look like the most coordinated guy.
Oh man, you're talking about that Michael Jackson video, dude. Jordan looks like Frankenstein at the end of that video, man. You
Yes.
kidding?
Yes. I mean, we've seen this guy do like these graceful spins through the air and do like put English on a ball, flip the ball up, and like doing all these amazing things. But this guy looks like he has two left feet.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, it's good. Um, let's talk about Simon. Bill Paxton, the late great Bill Paxton, who will always be Morgan Earp to me in Tombstone. He was a lot of things, but I just love Bill Paxton, man. You talk about a guy he just had a real honest face. He had likability, and he just felt like a real person. There's some actors, Phil, that just feel like real people. Like Brad Pitt is insanely famous. And you could argue he's in not argue, he's in the top 5 most famous actors in the world, I would submit. But he feels like a real person. And buddy, if he's not, he's a really good actor. But like Bill Paxton feels that way to me too. It feels like Bill Paxton could walk into a room kind of like Brad Pitt could, and you could just carry on a conversation, not really be starstruck because he's not really that kind of guy. So I've always liked Bill Paxton. But so for him to be a scumbag, a complete and utter scumbag in this film, this Simon character, when you're Tom Arnold and you don't have to be the comic relief because you got Bill Paxton, what a great thing to have. Um, what do you think about Bill Paxton in this film as Simon, this character? He's awesome.
um, a lot of his one-liners are just they're so crass and horrible,
They
but
are.
they're just so funny. I mean, like, of course, the vet gets him wet. It's just, it's just, I don't care how many times I hear it. It's just great. Um, one of the lines I always hear it, and I'm just like, but why? And when he's describing Helen, he's like, ask like a 13-year-old boy, and I was
Yeah,
like, what do you mean by that?
I know, right?
Wait, what do you mean by that, sir? Um,
Yeah.
uh, But no, Bill Paxton is great in this. He almost steals the show in several scenes he's in. Um, it's just so incredibly funny. When he calls her and he's like acting out with the gun, like somebody can see him. I'm like, you're in a room alone.
Yeah, yeah, really.
You're in a room alone, and he shoots the dart at that target on the wall, and I'm just like, she can't see you.
And talk about the horrible things he says. I'm not going to say the whole line, but the one that ends with makes you want to sit up and beg for buttermilk. I'm like, what? It's
Yeah,
so bad.
it's awful, but yeah, he's hilarious. He definitely gets you to the point of wanting to see this guy get his comeuppance because he's such a sleazy guy. And I think the fact that I think that Tom Arnold's character at several points is like, yeah, I kind of like this guy. It makes it even funnier
Yeah,
because
he's like, this guy's starting to grow on me. Oh, well, no, we still got to kill him. I mean, that's a given because Arnold gives him that look, you know.
yeah, he was like when they follow him, he's like, oh my god, he is a used car salesman. Yeah, I mean, no, this movie would not be what it is without Bill Paxton. Him driving alone in the vet, singing "More Than a Woman." There's just so many small things he does
God,
in this
yeah.
that are just so funny, man.
That is so
Uh,
good. Yeah, and the vet gets a cameo. That vet's a beautiful freaking car, let's be honest.
doesn't
Uh,
even handle that well.
that's right, yeah. Had 17,900 on it, I think, in 94. So now it'd be like $47,000 or something, if not more, probably more. Um, yeah, and when Arnold did that, and we've seen this is a trope in a lot of movies as well, like that when something insane happens, you're like, oh my God. And turns out the character was just imagining doing it. Because he gives him one backhand and bam, it like kills him, snaps his neck or something. Like, oh my God, he killed him in the car. And it turns out
Oh my god, he's dead.
he's dead. But he was okay. And that laugh, he just, God, he's so trashy. Such a bad person, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that flashback to when he meets Helen, and he runs by and puts the briefcase in her lap and runs away. It's like, sir,
Man,
nobody's chasing you.
nobody's chasing you. And it's brilliant. I don't know how far you'd go to pick up a lady there, Phil, but this may be something you could try. I mean, you got to get you a briefcase, get that thing maxed out with weapons and passports, and get you some gimmicks in there and make it look good. And she takes it home. I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah. The character is just. I mean, there are some bits about it that's kind of like, all right, like, what are the odds of him ended up being a waiter at that party at the end,
Yeah,
just to do a callback to the joke earlier?
sure.
Um, that doesn't feel realistic, but at the same time, he's just so funny in several parts of this movie. I can't say that I was mad to see him again.
He's like, you just let me go. Just let me go. I haven't seen your face. And they take the mask and goes, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. And he looks at him, sees the sergeant and goes, hey, did you still want the vet? Like,
Oh, thank God, a shoe.
yeah. Oh, it's so good. So good. And like he never put it together who Arnold was until the very end when he sees him and Helen at the party doing the tango. Yeah, it's actually kind of really perfect. Even though you're right, it's frankly impossible. Um, Eliza Dushku as Dana Tasker. And we'll circle back to the villainess here in a moment. Not such a great story from Eliza's perspective on this film because Eliza has a much different story to tell. According to Eliza Dushku, during this film, she was sexually assaulted. Um,
Ugh.
yeah, did you know this story? Because I didn't know this story.
No, I did not. That's horrible.
In January 2018, she revealed that when she was a 12-year-old child actress making this film, she was sexually molested by the film's 36-year-old stunt coordinator. Um, she detailed how Kramer groomed her for several months to gain her friendship and her parents' trust, contrived to spend an evening alone with her, and then molested her. She also said that after an adult friend confronted him on the set about the abuse, she was injured during a stunt. Dushku alleges that this was no small coincidence. So we're not here to throw stones. I don't know what's happened since then. Did she take it to court? I have no idea. I'm just now learning this myself, doing research for the show here. So, um, yeah, she had a lot of story to tell, Phil. She said, "My life was literally in his hands. He hung me in the open air from a tower crane atop an office tower 25 stories high. Whereas he was supposed to be my protector, he was my abuser." So apparently, the stunt part of this was used against her. I don't know if it was intimidation, is what we're talking about. But after the statement was released, Arnold, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Tom Arnold and James Cameron all came out in support of her story and in support of her as a person and everything that she reportedly went through. So I'll say allegedly because, like I said, I don't have answers for that. Her
Yeah,
role,
that's
not
terrible.
I know, right, dude? Not to cast a shadow on this comedy action film, but again, I had no idea. She didn't get a whole lot to do in this film, but I thought what she did was good. What did you think about Eliza in True Lies?
Um, well, she's been in tons of other things as an adult,
Mhm.
and I think this is kind of one of those blink if you miss it. If you don't recognize her right away, you might miss it.
Right.
Um, but she's just so weird and quirky in this movie. I mean, that she's a teenager, but there's several scenes where she is just like in the background doing something weird, and it's like, why are you doing that? Like, even when she steals the money at the beginning, I'm just like, okay, that was a very random thing to do, but
Yeah.
the kid or trying to let the dog lick frosting off of the knife, and I'm just like, why are you doing? What are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
or I always laugh at this every time I see the movie. Um, she stole the key out of the detonator. And then the first thing she thought to do was run to the roof and climb to the tallest fixture on the roof. It's like, what are you doing? Like, where are you going?
Yeah. What's the plan? Is Spider
Where?
Man supposed to come save you? What's happening here?
I mean, of course, it's all supposed to set up the stunt of her landing on the plane later, but when you just think of it in that moment that this is a teenager that just stole a key from a literal terrorist, your plan is to run to the top of the building and then climb a crane?
Yeah, it makes no sense. I don't, and dude, I don't know about anybody else, but when it comes to heights, I'm a big baby.
This is what I'm saying. Like, you're
Oh, I
already
can't do
afraid
it.
that this guy is going to shoot you. You're now going to take an even bigger risk and climb the highest fixture on this building.
Yeah. Oh my God, for sure. And dude, like I have an unnatural fear of heights personally. So like even if it's in a film where I'm not in danger, I almost can't look at the screen. So like these moments happen like they had Bill Paxton's character up on the edge of the dam. I couldn't look. I had turned away. Eliza's on the crane. I couldn't look, had turned away. I'm looking through squinted eyes. Like, dude, I can't stand it. I don't know. It's like a horror movie for me. I can't handle it.
Yeah.
Crazy. My kid laughs at me, man. It's not fair.
Yeah, no, I'm not a big heights guy either.
Ooh. But no, you're right. Like there was no plan. But to be fair, as you said, she's a dumb kid, and she just knows she's in danger. But then she puts herself in more danger.
Tom Clark 6M Podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark 6M Podcast sent you.
I mean, at least with the terrorist with the gun, you got a fighting chance. Kick him between the legs, do something. But like out on the crane by yourself without Spider-Man to save you, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Just so happens that your dad happens to be this expert spy that just so happens to be able to fly a Harrier jet.
Yes. Good for you. Yeah, like you said, those Harrier jets are amazing, dude. They can take off straight up in the air and they can fly backwards. That's some technology I don't think we talk about enough on this planet. I mean, this movie was made 30 years ago, or whatever it's been. That's some great technology, Phil. Oh my God.
Yeah, no, and all of the stuff that they used the jets for in the movie were cool.
For sure. So, speaking of jets, since we're talking about it anyway, uh, they actually did use the real things. I mean, of course, we know props are a thing in Hollywood and you can build anything to make it look like anything else, but they did use, honest to God, real life Harrier jets. They actually rented these things from the US government. They supplied 3 Marine Harriers and their pilots for a fee of $100,736 or $2,400 per hour. And when you're James Cameron, you can make those kind of things happen.
Yeah,
So
why
there
not?
you go. Yeah, why not? Circling back to the villainess, Juno Skinner. Yes, it's a villainess's name, I suppose. Maybe in a Bond film. Tia Carrere. And by the way, she very much feels like a Bond villain in this film. Supposedly this is Tia Carrere's favorite thing she's ever done because she got to play the heel, which is nice. And she's good at it too. And look, again, I'm not blind. You aren't either. Let's be honest. Jamie Lee's like not the only female in this film that looks captivating and amazing and stunning. Tia Carrere does also. And when they had the fight in the back of the limousine, I'm like, man, someone's clothes about to pop off here. Like, I'm not kidding. This is about to become a very different movie. I mean, I was a young man when it came out. Don't judge me. So, yeah. What did you think about her, man? Because at the time, we kind of knew Tia Carrere as, let's see, had they done Wayne's World by this time? I would think maybe they had.
I think so. I could be wrong, but I believe that Wayne's World came before True Lies.
Yep. It came in 92 and True Lies was 94. So, yes, she had already hit. What'd you think about her in this movie?
I think she's I think she's great. It's bad that every time I think about her in this movie, I think of her shocked face every time someone hits her. Like
Yeah.
she just looks so shocked. Like especially like um when we see our main villain of the movie walk in that room and say, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" And he's all calm about it, and then slaps her really hard in the face. And you would have thought she got like hit in the face with a bucket of ice water. Like like the shock on her face is like, oh, and she does that kind of shocked face a few times. It's almost like the kick out face. It's every time I think of that movie now, I think of her like this stunned look in the camera when she gets hit. But other than that, I think she does a great job of doing like this kind of like shady business owner who is kind of in over her head
Mhm.
um and almost gets kind of taken in by Arnold's character, almost gets tricked by him until our main villain comes in and goes, "What are you doing flirting and laughing with this guy?"
Yeah.
Um
So, listen, as a way to rewrite this, he slaps her good and hard twice, which we had no problem slapping women in this film, which is kind of weird. He slaps her good and hard twice, treats her like a piece of meat, evidently. Um, in another world, this script would have ended with Arnold still kills him, but the way he gets to him is through her because she turns on him. Now, she probably gets killed in the process, but in the end, she does the right thing. But not in this version because she stays heel all the way to the end. It's kind of odd they didn't have her character turn on him at that point.
I mean, she just turns out to be an awful person throughout the movie. I mean,
That's fair.
celebrating when she thought Harry was dead, like gloating, that was awful. She just does several awful things in the movie. um, um, but yeah, she's supposed to be the villain, so we're supposed to root against her. She makes a great foil for Helen later in the movie. Um, but I think she does everything she's supposed to do. I think she has great moments where she delivers the line well, like when she's on the plane and she tells them, "Oh, she really didn't know. How interesting."
Hmm. Yeah, not used to seeing her as a villain in anything she's ever done. I don't think. But yeah, she was good in this. Dude, she is stunning in this film, which does not suggest evil and black heart. So when she turns out to be those things, it's kind of like, oh, whoa, she's a bad guy. Like you kind of don't know. Like when you first see her in the film, you think, well, maybe she's up to no good, or maybe she's just rich and really, really smart. Who knows? And you're like, oh no, she's a bad person. This sucks. So interesting. Um, a quick cameo to shout out is the great Charlton Heston as Spencer Trilby. He doesn't have much to do in this film, but have him be the leader of was it the Omega Project they call it?
Yeah, and he's got like the stereotypical scarred face and eye patch. Just like what? What
Yes,
kind of where does Harry work? Because it almost makes it seem like early in the movie they worked for CIA, but he's just a part of this clandestine spy agency.
he is. Yeah, and like it looks like we're looking at Nick Fury here. What are we looking at?
Yeah,
The Omega Sector. So there you go. It's a mystery inside of an enigma. What is it? It's a mystery inside of a riddle wrapped in an enigma. That's what it is. Ah, yeah. What did you think about him, man? Do you have a take on Charlton Heston? Have you seen enough of his work to have a take on him?
I don't. I think that he fit in the scenes that he was in. Um, but I think if you've never seen this movie and you just watch it from beginning to end, and you're just like, well, that was kind of random. That's his boss.
Mm.
Um, and then again, it raises all these other questions. Like, he knows that Harry is creating all this collateral damage and doing all this other stuff. But he also has no problem with him continuing to work there. And it's like, wait, so you see the value in somebody like Harry's character, who is like this suave, debonair, uber muscular, super spy, but then like his sidekick is Tom Arnold. Like, how do how did you get to a place where both of these guys, all three of these guys, end up in the same room?
And to that point also, um, when Arnold goes into business for himself to have his wife followed and uses we'll call it the company because that's what they call the CIA, right? So we'll call it the company's resources to follow and trail his wife and bug her and track her all over the city and follow her and blow the doors off of
Yeah,
Bill Paxton's trailer there. I mean, did he ever have to own up for that? Did we
we
never got
we
anything like that happening, did we?
we never see Heston again. We never have one of those like buddy cop movies where he's like, Harry, get in here, and he's
Yeah.
like Kurt chews him out. Like that never happens again. So it almost just feels like this very arbitrary cameo.
Yeah. And it's worth mentioning that he and Tia Carrere are reunited because they were both in Wayne's World together. Remember the scene with the gas station attendant where Wayne looks at the camera and says, "I'm sorry, can we get another actor?" And
Oh
they
yes.
there you go. So like to say that you got to work in two different films with Charlton Heston. I mean, I don't know how many people are walking around today that can actually say that. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Good question. A little bit of trivia, and we're going to get to the director here shortly. James Cameron, the voice on the mic when he as the helicopter pilot who says, "Yeah, she's got her head in his lap." Yahoo! That's James Cameron's voice, by the way.
I never knew that.
I didn't know that either. All right, we've got the cast covered here. Before we get into the story, we got to talk about this director, and I call him this director now. Truth be told, you're gonna laugh. You're gonna think I'm crazy. I just watched the first Avatar for the first time.
I still have never seen it.
Really? It's a slog, dude. It's like 6.5 days worth of film or something. It's really not, but it's a long freaking movie. It's good film. I don't have a lot negative to say about it. I really don't. It's a good film. I would sit here and rip it apart because I'm not happy with the guy. No point in it because I don't really have anything to rip apart. I guess if I wanted to nitpick it, I could. But I'm like you. I didn't care about it. but we were with, extended family over the holidays. Everybody wanted to watch it. I'm like, I'm in the room. I'll watch it. It's fine. And I'm like, wow, this film's taken a long time, but you know what? It's good. Like, I don't have a lot of complaints. But I'll say all that to say this. As much as I enjoy James Cameron's work on other things, what is the obsession with ripping on the MCU? And he's not the first guy to do it. We know of other guys that have done it. I'm drawing a blank. Scorsese's done it.
Scorsese.
And who else am I thinking of?
Yeah.
Tarantino.
Yeah.
Tarantino's done it.
I think Tarantino has done like I think some of what he says aren't as bad as the other two. Because I don't get the feeling that he doesn't see those things as cinema. I think that he also just thinks that like the most recent thing him saying is that you don't have to be a movie star anymore. You can just have like a big role in a MCU movie and you're famous because of that. And that's not necessarily wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are absolutely a lot of directors at the moment that are, making waves by being the anti superhero wave. Which is interesting to me for James Cameron because throughout a big part of his career, he made genre movies. I mean, he very famously made genre movies. I mean, Aliens. I mean, Last Action Hero. I'm pretty sure he directed a Rambo, didn't he?
Did he? I didn't know that. He did the first two Terminators, right?
Well, yeah, of course, Terminator. But yeah, I think that he has now tried to become like this, like, you know, I don't know, innovator when it comes to stuff like Avatar. And, he's known for Titanic and that being this ultra serious movie that ended up being a colossal box office success. But at the same time, it's interesting that he's the guy that takes this stuff so seriously. Like, I just don't see it. This is the guy that was in line to direct Spider-Man at one point.
Very true.
And not just in line, like the script was in the works. Like, this was like, it wasn't like they had went and looked for him to direct it. No, he was already like knee deep into doing the work for this movie.
Dude, he's only directed 9 films. Did you know that?
Oh, I did not know that.
9 films. Now, this is not counting the other 2 Avatars because he's doing like 3 movies back to back with the Avatar stuff. He started in 82 with Piranha 2: The Spawning.
Yeah, real serious output there.
Exactly. And Terminator. Like, Terminator is a serious film. It's about robots taking over in the future. That's not serious, kids. That's a comic book. Aliens is not serious. That's a comic book. The Abyss, you could argue, is comic book style film. Terminator 2: Judgment Day, True Lies, Titanic, Avatar, and the next 3 Avatar films. That's it.
So he didn't direct Last Action Hero? Maybe he was just producer on there.
Maybe that's what it is. Yeah.
I know he was attached to it in some way. Maybe I don't know.
Let's see. Producer, yes. He's got a ton of producer credits. He's got producer credits on a lot of films, dude. Yeah, more than he directed, I think. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he's attached to like some pretty popular franchises and some notable genre movies. So it is a bit strange that he would be the guy that's like, I don't know about this comic book stuff.
Yeah. These comic books, I don't know about it. Who knows?
And I am a guy that detests Titanic. I despise that movie.
I've never been a fan either.
And that's not to say that I hold that against him and go, oh well, he's a hack because he directed that. But I've never liked that movie. And there are just things about Avatar when I look at it like this just is not for me. And I'll probably see it at some point, but like this just it, even a sequel. When I see a trailer for a sequel, I'm like, yeah, this just nah, this just doesn't look like it's for me.
And there again, it's about blue skinned people, and it's all CG, and even the water. I heard this newest film. There's not even real water when you see the oceans. It's CGI water. But he's
Yeah,
ripping on comic book films for what
it,
exactly? Like,
it always felt a bit pretentious to me, to
yeah,
be honest.
yeah, I agree. So,
But
yeah,
I've people that enjoy those movies. They really enjoy them. It's the same thing with Titanic. People that love Titanic really love it. Um, and of course, that's not to down anything the guy's done. One of the most successful directors ever. I mean, this guy has made like colossal hits. He's made money hand over fist. And it's very well earned success.
yeah. Oh, yeah, no, that's very, very true. That's yeah. Yeah, can't argue that. But these unwarranted, unsolicited, unknown, unrequired shots at a highly profitable movie studio, which kids, in case you didn't know, tends to make a whole lot of people really, really happy. Um, we have to rip on that. I don't understand. As much grief and sorrow as we have on the planet, and we want to hate on a movie studio for making a whole lot of people from every walk of life at this point, from different persuasions to different cultural backgrounds, races, ethnicities, sexual orientation, lifestyles, really, really happy. Like, I just don't get it. I don't for life of me understand. I made the comparison one day to I'm not a Power Rangers fan. At the time when that was red hot, I was in my teenage years and I was past it. So I didn't care about it. As a teenager who was still into Transformers and GI Joe, I thought Power Rangers was absolutely ridiculous. I still don't. I'm just saying, I'm still not a fan of it. However, I don't rip on it because I'm not a fan of it, because I understand there's quite a big following to this day for the whole Power Rangers thing. Like, I don't have to understand it, but it also doesn't give me the license to sit back and throw stones at it every time I get a chance. Like, it's dumb to do that. Why do that?
Um, well, I think that's what makes some of the stuff like James Cameron and some directors that um are not into like the superhero phase, or they think it's a fad at the moment. It's very much like the experience of going to a convention. And if you've never been to a Comic Con, um, there are people from so many different walks of life. There's so many different fandoms in the same room, and it's interesting because you can be a guy in a line to meet a guy that played a Power Ranger 30 years ago or wherever, 20 years ago.
Mm,
Um, but at the same time, there could be some guy standing in the same line with you that's looking across the room at somebody standing to meet a wrestler, and it's like, oh, what is that? That's some wrestling thing. Ugh, can you imagine? And
yeah,
it's like
right.
you're turning your nose up at wrestling, but you're a fan of guys in tights flipping around and beating up other guys in foam costumes. Um,
Mm.
it's
Yeah,
it's
good point.
abs- it's absurd. Like it's kind of like guys that are like serious Star Trek fans, but they also turn up their nose at other people, and I've never quite understood that. I just think that I'll say all the time, like if I just don't enjoy something, it's not for me. It's not for me. Uh, but people that are under the same umbrella of nerddom and fandom, I don't really understand them looking at other fandoms and going, "Oh, those guys are the real weirdos." Like,
Yeah, really.
no, I think all of us that are in this room at a convention are weird in our own way. Um, but it's just people just want to have that distinction of going, "I'm not as weird as that guy." And I feel like it's kind of like that with like some of these like directors, because a lot of these guys are dorks. Don't get it wrong. Just because they're adults and they make a lot of money, they're still nerd. They're still film nerds. Like, I mean, Scorsese studies and he believes in film in a way that a lot of people don't talk about film, and in some ways that makes him a nerd. Um, but he sees what he does as above, other people that are doing film or doing nerdy things. I just don't quite understand it. I think we can get into a conversation about what is and isn't art, and why he feels like his movies that are always about gangsters that murder each other is art, but yet I don't know, those guys in costumes fighting aliens. That's just a step too far. Um, I don't know. It's all movie. It's all movies. It's all like this weird fantasy fulfillment. Um, I don't know. I don't take it that seriously, so I don't really understand why they do.
I don't get it. I don't understand that. And I was gonna say something to the effect of Marvel's an easy target. No, they're not really. Like to me, the words easy target suggests, that they're vulnerable. They've fallen on hard times. Let's take shots at them. Marvel has never been bigger. Like I don't understand the need. Well, maybe that's it. Well, they're big. We need to rip on. 'Em. We got to come down to size. I don't get it. Doesn't make any
Well,
sense to me.
but see, this is the thing that I did agree with Tarantino on is that, in some ways, like when you look at the marquee for Avengers, for example, yes, you can say Robert Downey Jr. is a star, but really, Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, or like everybody else, those are not the stars of the movie. The star of the franchise is the character. It's Iron Man, it's
Sure,
Captain
sure.
America. It's all of these people that you can put anybody in that role and people will show up to see it because that is the selling point for a lot of people. And that's what he means when he was saying you don't have to be a movie star anymore, because it used to be that you sold the movie on who's in it. Like just like we're saying the day of the Arnold popcorn movie is over. That was the selling point of seeing a lot of these movies is Arnold, because he's a movie star. Um, but I don't think that now, for example, you can build a franchise without having an Arnold. You can build a franchise off of IP, and I think that that's what some directors don't like. I think that they feel like it's devoid of creativity because you don't have to build something up from the ground up. It already has an established fan base and it already has established appeal to it.
Mhm.
Which is fair, but I also feel like to be upset with those things because those things are making more money than, I don't know, Irishman or whatever movie you were trying to get off on
Yeah,
Netflix. It's kind of silly. And to make it seem like it's just because you're trying to protect the sanctity of cinema and the art form of cinema, I just think it's a little disingenuous.
yeah, yeah. Because we've been doing the cinema is nothing but make believe. We're not curing cancer here, Phil. We're just telling stories and trying to get people's money. That's all we're doing. That's all Hollywood is trying to get your money and tell a story at the same time. It's all make believe, dude.
Yeah, I mean, look, we enjoy movies about things that were just as silly for a long time. I mean, the generation above us enjoyed westerns, and I was never a western guy, but I
Mm.
also understand what it is that is the appeal of western for some people. It's just like Bond movies and the appeal of spy movies.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like um, one of the things that have been said about the MCU quite a bit by some of these directors that well it'll pass, it's a fad. I'm like, you guys understand that it started in 2008 with the first Iron Man, and here we are. Was that 15 years later, and we're still cranking, and they still have plans for like 10 years from now or something like. I don't
Yeah,
know if I would ever call this a fad. Like this is
yeah.
barring something cataclysmic. I think this thing's gonna be here for a good long time.
I think if the superhero bubble was gonna burst, it would have burst by now. We're now almost shoot, we're approaching 30 years. I mean,
Yeah.
if you go all the way back to uh the Donner Superman movies or the Batman movies from the late 80s, yeah, we're approaching 30, 40 years and the bubble hasn't burst yet. I don't think it's going to happen.
Good point. Yeah.
Maybe we'll see less of them at some point than we see now because they're now dominating the box office, but I don't think it'll ever be a point where they completely go away.
And here's where I will I will always quote this guy because first of all, he's awesome, but second, he made maybe the best point. When Simu Liu reacted to Quentin Tarantino's tweet or comments, he said, "If the only gatekeepers to movie stardom came from Tarantino and Scorsese, I would never have had the opportunity to lead a $400 million plus movie. I'm in awe of their filmmaking genius. They are transcendent auteurs, but they don't get to point their nose at me or anyone." And dude, if that line don't want to make you go fight somebody, that's some good stuff. They don't get to point their nose at me. That's awesome.
I mean, that's very much true. Because I mean, if you look at the guys that lead their movies, they're usually a very similar race.
Yep.
And so I get what Simu was saying. I also get that there's a counter argument to what he's saying as well, but I do think that I can understand why someone like him would feel offended that they're turning their nose up at his success.
Mm.
And they might not mean it personally to him, but you got to understand how that comes off when you are drawing this net over everything that Marvel does in every superhero movie.
Yeah, I find it odd that we're still dealing with this as fans, and I don't know. It just seems like our commentary about fandom when it comes to pro wrestling. Like what you want to like. You don't have to be a fan of it. You don't want If you don't like it, don't watch it. Like just because you're a director doesn't mean you have to like what all your fellow directors do in studios. If you don't like it, don't watch it. What gives you the right? Oh, well, I'm Quentin Tarantino. Yeah, oh, great. But my friend, when you're gone one day, we'll be talking about other directors. No disrespect, but like, what are we talking about here? You act as though you're the only one that's ever made a film in your life. I don't know. Like to me, that just reeks of arrogance, man. Everyone should listen to me because I know what I'm talking about. So all the people that work in the MCU don't know? They're suckers. They're just getting a payday. Is that what you're telling me? That your peers are they just want to get paid? Like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, I mean, it's all entertainment and it's all people making obscene amounts of money to make these things. So
Yeah.
I get it. I just don't think it's that serious. And again, I don't want to speak for anybody's artistic integrity.
Sure.
um, but of course, that's all in perspective. I'm sure people believe that I'm doing this, and I'm trying to make art. And hey, I get it, but I don't think that always gives you the right to look down on other people. And I mean, we do this as podcasters and creators. I try very hard not to comment on other people's content
Hmm.
if I don't like it, because somebody else somewhere might, and I don't want to uh, weaponize my audience that enjoys what I do
Hmm.
to go and then trash what they do. I just don't. I don't think that's necessary.
Well, you and I spoke privately off mic about things we don't much care to listen to or look at, but we would
Yeah.
never talk about it in public because it's the wrong thing to do that.
No, I feel like especially when you have a platform and you have a large audience, because uh, whether people feel the same way or not, they're going to be swayed by your opinion because they're already a fan of you.
Mhm. So we said we'd circle back to this. This movie is based in large part on La Totale, which came out 3 years prior. Arnold evidently went to James Cameron and gave him this idea. He'd seen this film thanks to his brother-in-law. Cameron was surprised because he'd never seen Arnold suggest a project based solely on his interest in a character. And after watching the film, Cameron loved the idea of presenting a secret agent with nearly unlimited professional resources as a family man, basically asking the question, who would James Bond be if he got home and had to answer to his wife, and decided to make the movie? That's an intriguing premise. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, pitch an idea, a movie idea. Okay, I've got one. James Bond, but he's married and he lives in the suburbs. Like that's a good story. Like there's something to be said there for that story. So that's
Yeah.
good stuff. This is the first movie, according to the Guinness Book, to have a production budget of $100 million. And this made it the most expensive movie at the time, breaking the record of Terminator 2. And it would lose this record the next year to Waterworld. So the doomed, the ill-fated Waterworld. So there you go. The soundstage where they shot the Harrier scale model was the largest 180-degree green screen background ever built. I'm sure at the time it was. Until those pesky Marvel guys got their hands on some green screen and just effed it all up. James Cameron originally hired a team of writers to help him come up with the film's jokes. However, after being mostly unsatisfied with their work, Cameron let them go and decided to try his own hand at comedy. He rewrote the script from scratch and kept only 2 jokes from his team of writers, one of which being Arnold's famous "You're fired" line. So I wonder what the other jokes were, because evidently they were not funny.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't
Interesting. Okay. We spend the majority of time talking about the cast and the stuff behind it, and then we spend like 5 minutes on the plot. That's how we roll. So let me give you this on the plot, because I really want to know. Do we know what the bad guys' intentions are? Because after watching the movie, and again, I've seen it like 300 times. It's no joke. I really have. I'm still trying to, as we record this, get it in my head what it is this guy's intending to do. He just wants to blow stuff up. What do you think about the plot to this movie, other than the secret agent stuff, just the villain's plot?
It's not very clear.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little convoluted. Because at one point, like, drugs are involved, and it's like, but like even Arnold has to explain to Jamie Lee Curtis's character, like, what does drugs have to do with this? I thought this guy was a terrorist.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's a little convoluted. I don't think we get a clear idea of what is his relationship with Tia Carrere's character,
Yeah.
other than she's just like a front for him to help him smuggle things in. It's a little convoluted.
She is a front to help him smuggle in 4 stolen MERV nuclear warheads into the country, behind them in priceless antique statues. And then Aziz demands the U.S. remove all of U.S. military forces from the Persian Gulf forever, or else he will detonate a warhead each week in a major U.S. city. He also says he will detonate 1 warhead on the uninhabited island to demonstrate that Crimson Jihad is a nuclear power. So, I mean, the logistics of this are a little messed up. Like, even if the United States said, well, okay, fine, we want to get out of the Gulf anyway, let's just pull everybody out. Do you know how many months it would take to literally pull service members who are like living in the Gulf? Like, they're not just like, they're stationed. I mean, the manpower it would take. It seems like this guy didn't think through this plot very much at all.
No. No, he definitely did not.
Can't send a couple school buses and a plane. I mean, it's gonna take some shuffling to move families at this point in time. Not just soldiers, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think he thought it through. I think it was mostly like, just do it.
That's the problem with bad guys in films. They just want what they want. They want the money in the helicopter, and they want their buddies freed, and they don't care how you got to do it. But you better do it. They're going to kill everybody.
Yeah. I don't know why every time I think about it. It could be just because how many times I've seen True Lies on cable, and of course every time it gets to like the Jamie Lee Curtis scene, if I'm turning past it, I see it. So one of the lines from this movie that's always stuck in my head is the henchman taking him out and putting him in that van, and he's just like, yeah, talk again, I'll kill you. Like, I don't know, I always think of that line like with this movie, because it's like burned in my brain of how many times I've seen that scene of them like getting like snatched out of the room and put in that van.
Yeah, really. Yeah, and terrorists are always in vans, like always in vans.
It's always just like a nondescript white van.
Yeah. You would think that'd be the easiest thing in the world to track in traffic would be the white van. Wouldn't that stand out if you're the FBI looking for a van?
Yeah, I don't know about this. Like a bunch of guys in a van. Like who just buys a white van?
Just rides around. Hey man, did you hear Dan got a van? We should all hang out this weekend. All of us in this van together. What?
Yeah.
Never gonna happen. Speaking of the striptease scene, drew criticism. What? Perish the thought for perceived misogynistic content. But the truth of the matter, as Tom suggested at the beginning of this show, Jamie Lee Curtis is no one to be taken lightly. She's a heavy hitter, kids. She had a lot of input in how this scene was played out. The original idea was for Helen to go completely nude, but in the dark, so that only her silhouette would be seen, so you wouldn't actually see Jamie Lee nude. It was her idea to turn the lights on and keep her in her underwear. And it's actually her underwear. This is not from wardrobe. I don't know why I would know this fact, but here it is in front of me. It's actually her, honest to God, underwear. I don't know why that matters. She did the dance to Cameron beforehand, let him see everything she was going to do, and then also it's important to say that most of the criticism of the scene came from men, while most of the female reviewers praised it as empowering and even liberating scene for Helen. And I can actually see that. It would make sense that she is, she's been married to this very boring guy her whole life, and now she gets to be, for lack of a better word, sexual. I mean, it makes sense to me, but yeah, there you go. She has since called this film without question, quote, without question, the greatest experience of my professional life so far.
Wow.
Yeah, that's big. Oh, and by the way, Phil, we mentioned Nick Fury. The character and traits of Spencer Trilby is based on Nick Fury.
Yeah, go figure.
Well, there you go. Eye patch, same mannerisms, and he's heading a peacekeeping organization. So at one point, James Cameron wanted to be, you're going to love this. At one point, James Cameron wanted to be a comic book artist and does a lot of his own concept art. He even designed the entire T-800's endoskeleton.
That doesn't surprise me because
Nope.
a lot of his work lends itself to that fandom. That doesn't surprise me at all. Again, he was heavily attached to Spider-Man. If people were not on message boards back then, I don't think people realize how heavily he was attached to Spider-Man for a long time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. He was supposed to be the guy that directs it for sure.
Yeah, it was one of those. It's one of those projects up there for fans. That the script is still like out there if people want to read it. Uh, it's one of those projects that never happened, but people still talk about a lot to this day, like the Tim Burton Superman movie that never happened.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good point. Yeah. Yeah, good point. We might do a 6M on that movie that never happened one day. That'd be fun. So some other trivia here for you kids. Let's see. A lot of problems evidently plagued the shooting of the opening sequence. The mansion scene was filmed on an extremely cold night, and the mansion itself was not heated. All the women wore dresses with nothing underneath, and a costume change room was set up outside in the cold. Kerosene lamps were used to heat the tents. One of the extras' blouses caught fire. For their suffering, yeah. For their suffering through the harsh cold that night, the extras were paid an additional $50.
Wow.
They got taken care of.
Rich.
Yeah. And by the way, did we have to know that none of the women wore anything underneath the dresses? And why did they not wear anything underneath the dresses?
I don't know.
It's counterproductive, isn't it? To being cold.
Yeah. It's just such a. I mean, it's such a action movie of that era when you think about Arnold running around in the snow in the tuxedo, and you've got the henchmen all dressed in the white camouflage stuff. It just it's so that era. Uh him catching two dogs in midair and clacking their heads together and knock them out.
Oh my God. Yeah. And dude, he did a lot of stuff in it. He rode the horse in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, even him scuba diving to get to the mansion.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's how they knew he was there. They found the hole in the ice that he came from.
And that tipped them off. Wait a minute.
Wait a minute. I didn't see that before.
The
There's water there.
The funniest part of that bit is that out loud, the guy would say, wait a minute. That's a very, old school movies trope as well, where you say things like to state the obvious. Speaking of the horse just about killed Arnold.
Wow.
And yeah, I don't know that I knew this story either. Supposedly, the horse got startled and took off with him on the back. And he was good at horse riding because of the Conan movies. So it was not a problem. So he could do it was fine. He did a lot of horseback riding. It was fine. But the problem was, again, the horse got startled, ran out of control. He managed to slide off the horse. But the problem is when he slid off, it was near a 30-foot drop off.
Oh my God.
Yeah. His personal stuntman saw what happened and was able to run and grab him before he went over the ledge. So we could have been talking about something very tragic here. This movie could have killed him.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I mean, just how over the top that whole chase scene is. That starts in the bathroom and how they just completely destroyed this bathroom, shooting at each other, and then out of all the things that lead to this chase is that our bad guy is getting away on a motorcycle, totally normal, but Arnold is chasing him down with a horse. And then they end up in this absurd scene where they're taking the elevator up at the same time, and Arnold is still on a horse. He's still on his motorcycle across in the other elevator. There's a couple in the elevator with Arnold and the horse.
And what's funny is the wife's like, you should say something about it. He's like, it's a fine animal. So good.
Like, yeah, you're just gonna force this guy on this horse to get out of this elevator. Like, it's not gonna happen. I'm pretty sure that probably passed the weight limit, didn't it? Having this horse in an elevator.
Yeah, okay. So there were 4 different horses used because each horse had different abilities. So I guess one of them's ability was to ride in an elevator. I don't know. The horse in the hotels
with different abilities. Why does this sound like the premise for like one of those television shows, one of those cartoons like Ninja Turtles?
It's like the X-Men or something, Each one has their own special abilities.
4 horses with their own special abilities came together to save the world.
And of course, the show is called Horsepower because why wouldn't it be?
Yeah, of course, Horsepower, and it has like the guitar riff all over it.
90s guitar, it's important.
Yeah,
little synthesizer as well.
There were so many shows at that time that tried to capitalize on the success of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So you had stuff like the biker mice from Mars. You had the dinosaurs. What is the name of it? Extreme Dinosaurs. You had T-Rex. You had Street Sharks. All of these shows that were just like anthropomorphic characters, where it was like 4 of them that came together.
Yep,
and they all had different abilities.
Do you remember? It was a comic. I think it was a comic. Adolescent radioactive black belt hamsters.
Oh my God!
Yes, that was a thing.
that wave in the 90s of those shows and comics, like it just seemed like it was never ending.
Oh my God, 100%. So it's interesting to note that Simon and Harry actually have a lot more in common than people might think. They're actually mirror images of each other. Simon is a salesman pretending to be a spy, and Harry is a spy pretending to be a salesman. Hey. There's some deep stuff here after all. The bathroom fight. I wasn't the only one on the planet who, when they saw the previews for that Mission Impossible flick, when Henry Cavill is in the bathroom fighting with Tom Cruise, like we all thought, True Lies, right? Because I did.
Yeah, maybe so.
Because, classic. The bathroom fight scene was only half a page in the script and only mentioned a struggle but no specifics. When James Cameron came to inspect the set 2 days before the scene was supposed to be filmed, he said it needed to be 3 times bigger for all the shooting, fighting, and other destruction that he had in mind. He wanted lights to come down from the ceiling and water spraying from broken toilet bowls and faucets. This is the first time that the art direction crew had ever heard of this, giving production designer and his team only 2 days to redesign and rebuild the set to Cameron's wishes. And it took 5 days to shoot the scene.
Wow.
So there you go. I love trivia. It's fun stuff. So the one-liners that they have in here are some good one-liners. When he gets the truth serum, and she's, Helen finally gets the truth from him, obviously, and she says, asks him, what he does. Is he a spy or whatever? And he says, yes. She goes, have you ever killed anybody? He goes, yeah, but they were all bad. Dude, that is so good. Like,
all of the one-liners. Of course, we talked about the "You're fired" line. The "What can I say, honey? I'm a spy."
yes.
All of the one-liners. When you look at stuff that spoofs this stuff, like American Dad does it a lot. Of course, McBain. But yeah, that genre action movies, it just doesn't seem like it exists anymore. It's not as over the top and ridiculous with the one-liners now. And like I feel like when they do it now, it's like either an homage to that stuff or a way that it's like like self-referential humor that it just doesn't hit the same.
Yeah. There's been plenty of Arnold movies in his career that the one-liners weren't that stellar, but I thought they're pretty on par here.
Get ready for a big surprise.
Yeah. What was the one stick around? Was that Predator?
Maybe. I
that
mean,
was
the most memorable line from Predator for me is always "Get to the chopper."
Get to the chopper. Yeah. I just remember Jesse Ventura being on the helicopter offering chewing tobacco, saying this stuff will make you a GD sexual tyrannosaurus.
Okay.
Because it was a cringe line because the first part what he said, but then the second part was this stuff will make you a GD sexual tyrannosaurus, just like me.
Yeah. Another one of those 90s shows.
Yeah, Predator's gonna have to. Yeah, we're gonna have to hit Predator on this show. I can already see it coming. Dude, what's your take overall on this film? Like, entertaining, fun, something you'd recommend? I think we both agree it's got moments of being kind of trapped in its era, but I think there's enough good stuff here that it can be seen anytime. Did you bump into anything on the viewing of this again? Anything that made you go, "Ooh, that's tough to hear in 2023"? I mean, anything like that jump out at you besides the Middle Eastern stuff, or do you think it's does it pass the litmus test? I should say.
No, I didn't find any of it to be like that cringy or offensive. I think that for the most part, it's still a very entertaining movie. I think there's parts of it that are still charming. I think that the humor still works. Um, I think for the most part, it works because a lot of comedy is coming from talented actors like Bill Paxton or Tom Arnold. And I think this is, in my opinion at least, some of Arnold's best work as well. I think Jamie Lee Curtis does a great job. I think it holds up well. And again, I don't know how much of that is nostalgia for me because I've seen this movie uh, hundreds of times. But I think all of the action set pieces are incredibly over the top, but they're still incredibly entertaining. Um, I don't care how many times I see the bridge scene and the jets blowing up the bridge and just how ridiculous it looks when the first truck like all nearly makes it and flies over and lands on its back. It's still great. I mean, yeah, some of it is still hokey, like the seagull landing on the other truck to make it tip over. But again, I feel like that a part of that is a part of the charm of this movie.
And the terrorists are all celebrating because the truck didn't go over, even though they're still teetering over the edge
Oh,
with no way out.
every time I look at it now as an adult, too, Arnold burning up all these terrorists with that hose, and he makes it into this makeshift flamethrower, and then Simon shows up out of nowhere and kicks this crate open and pops out this rocket launcher, and you have this long slow motion extended scene of him blowing up this area and Arnold jumping in the water. And Simon thinks he kills him, and he turns around straight at the camera and goes, "Yes!" and does like a fist bump.
Oh man.
It's just so 90s, man. And that's why I said parts of this definitely feel dated. But it doesn't bother me that much.
Yeah. No, I didn't. The slapping the woman part is kind of rough. Some of the jokes that Simon makes are a little rough, but like it is an
Yeah.
R-rated flick. I mean, we need to remember that too. So
Yeah, and I think that there's some of the stuff that I think some of the Bill Paxton stuff doesn't bother me because we are shown very early on in the movie that the guy is a scumbag. I think if this is our main character and he's the likable guy saying these things, then it's bad. But I think that we know Bill Paxton is a scumbag in this movie. He gets his comeuppance for everything, so it doesn't bother me.
true. And what you were thinking, by the way, as a side note earlier about Cameron, he co-wrote Rambo: First Blood Part 2.
Ah, okay. I knew he was attached to one of the Rambo movies. I just couldn't remember how. And I'm pretty sure he has writing credits on some of the other movies I was thinking of, like Last Action Hero. He's attached to that movie in some way. I just cannot remember how.
And here's some fun stuff also is that Jamie Lee Curtis, the part was supposedly written for her, but Jodie Foster was supposed to play Helen until she turned it down for Nell. Yeah. Not the same movie at all. Not the same movie. Like Jodie Foster, very good actress, but like I I don't know. I don't know if this movie works with Jodie Foster. If I'm being honest, I think it works because it's Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, but I don't know how much of that is just that we've both seen this movie over and over again, and
That's
it's
fair.
like neither of us could picture this movie without her.
Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, John Goodman, and Steve Guttenberg were considered for the part of Albert Gibson. You can consider Bill Murray all day. It doesn't mean he even wants to talk to you. So I don't know why they even tell us this. It's his call, talking about Bill Murray was considered. He's like, I don't care what you think. I'm not doing any of that. John Goodman would have been a fine choice. He and Arnold would have been fine together. Dan Aykroyd probably would have been fine. Steve Guttenberg is an interesting choice. Mahoney from the Police Academy movies. He's a good actor, would have been fine. But Tom Arnold it works, it clicks. So
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I could picture Gutenberg in it. Nah.
God, there's a film franchise I haven't seen in years either.
Police Academy?
Oh man, I bet those movies do not hold up.
Oh yeah, the further it gets into the franchise, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the episode of Futurama 2 days ago that does like parodies of it when Fry is in the police academy, and I think one of the funniest gags in it is there's a robot that can do all the sound effects, and Fry is like, yeah, that'd probably be really impressive if you were a human.
There you go. Michael Winslow's still out there doing his thing. Speaking of sound effects. Have you heard Michael Winslow doing Jimi Hendrix at Woodstock?
I've heard him do a few songs. I forgot what it was. He did a guitar solo.
He did Zeppelin.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was Zeppelin, and yeah, he's amazing.
He
I
is.
just some of the stuff he does is just like, how are you doing this?
How are you doing it? Yeah. Well, kids, I think that's gonna wrap it up for us. We've still got a lot more trivia here, but we'll be here another 30 minutes. What the heck? I'll throw a few in. Bill Paxton and Arnold Schwarzenegger teamed together 3 times in The Terminator, Commando, and True Lies. two of which were directed by Cameron. Bill starred in Predator Part 2, the sequel to Arnold's Predator. Schwarzenegger had to have surgery over a bicuspid aortic valve in 97, and years later, so did Bill. Now we're reaching, Phil. There you go.
Yeah.
Similarities between the two actors.
One of the last things Bill Paxton did was, of course, his role in Agent Shield, and he ended up being a Hydra agent. And in a very Bill Paxton voice, he just turns and looks at the camera and goes, "Hail Hydra!" It's
Yeah,
great. I
yeah,
love Bill Paxton, man.
it's awesome.
I loved him so much, man. Rest in peace to the legend.
Yeah, Twister is not winning Academy Awards anytime soon, but it's such a fun film. It really is. He's very good in it. So, well, there you have it, kids. There is True Lies. I'm so glad we did this. I love this film. It's still one of my favorite films, probably of all time. Um, I was going to say my favorite Arnold film. It might be tough, but it's up there. It's up there.
Yeah,
So
it's tough to beat Terminator 2, man.
it is. God, it's so good.
It's
That
very
movie
tough.
is so good.
I think Terminator 2 is still my top Arnold movie, but I also really like Total Recall as well. Um, yeah,
Eraser's not a bad flick.
no, it's not. No, he listen. Arnold had a run. He had an incredible run as an action hero star.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, that just makes me think about the Expendables, which is a whole other, very similar to what we're talking about, but a different franchise. But yeah, that movie's coming out this calendar year, I think, but I don't know if I care about it too much.
Yeah, I mean, when you think of guys that made the action hero and movie stars that made that the lane, I feel like Arnold's one of the biggest names in it. It's basically Arnold and then Stallone,
Yeah,
and that's like the top tier of it. Like if you're making a Mount Rushmore of action movie guys, Arnold is dead in the center of that.
yeah, and honestly, everybody else is everybody else.
Yeah,
It's those two guys, and then you talk about Bruce Willis, then you talk about Chuck Norris, then you talk about Jason Statham, basically the Expendables team.
yeah. I mean, but I feel like those two guys, Stallone and Schwarzenegger, they were the pinnacle at one
Absolutely,
point.
absolutely. Well, let's try to put a cap on this. Phil, give me your last word on True Lies.
It is a fun movie. I think if you think about it too hard and you pay attention to things like a gun falling downstairs and still managing to kill all the henchmen walking up, um, you're not gonna enjoy this movie. But if you just enjoy it for what it is, as just a funny and entertaining movie, I think you'll love it as much as I did. But it could be when I discovered it as a young man that um, just like to see things blow up and you know women without a lot of clothes on. I enjoyed it.
Well, you can't beat that. A gun accidentally falling down the stairs and killing a bunch of terrorists, and a woman taking her clothes off. Dude, that's the American way right there. What else we got to talk about? So there you go. Yeah, look, this movie hits all the right notes, kids. It really, truly does. I don't know if you necessarily even have to love action films to enjoy this film because there's some meat to the bone here. This is not just a bunch of bullets. There's a lot of bullets, but that's not just what this film is. I think there's some real heart here. I'm not going to go overboard and say there's a lot, but I think there's just enough that you can connect to it in some way. You can probably see yourself in one of these characters. Hopefully not Simon, but you could probably see yourself in at least one of these characters. Yeah, I think it's one of Arnold's best films for sure. And again, as we started this show, I'll repeat it. I'm really glad that they never circled back to this. I think they could have. And honestly, a sequel may have been just as good, if not better. And not maybe, would have made a lot more money. But they told their story. They finished their story. They never came back to it. And I, for
Yeah,
one, am totally good with that. What will happen in the future? We'll see, especially with the new Expendables film, if Arnold will ever revisit certain characters he's played in the past as Stallone has. Who knows? Time will tell on that one, kids. But in the meantime, that is true lies.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.